Hello, welcome to Empower and Ignite Transformation Podcast with Alicia and Nicole. How are you, Alicia?
I am doing good. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. I am refreshed, back from a vacation, so I am doing good.
That's nice. Tell us more about that vacation. Did you get to go see the ocean, the forest? What you go?
So definitely ocean, right? But no forest. But just really chilling with family and having time to spend with them. Love the nieces and my daughter, and then my aunt and mom. So it was a whole group. So we had a good time. Yeah, them few days was needed.
I know that's right. I know that's right. Now, I know, of course, going with a whole bunch of women, right? We have to regulate those emotions and, things like that. So, how did that go?
Oh, okay. So that's funny you say that because it really is when you are with a group of people, right? You're likely the different personalities and just ensuring that everybody is receiving what they need, having a good time. So for me, as the leader of the pack, kind of, they're looking for me to direct them what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And you hit that age gap. So the young ones, versus the older, and I guess now they say you call them mature. Uh, they don't eat at the same time. They don't, they need to get things, like a certain time where younger ones is hanging out all night and they eat later. And so just finding a balance. Sometimes we didn't eat together, which was okay. Sometimes others went off on their own. The young ones did what they wanted to do because they are grown. And then, the older ones, the mature ones went off and, had a good time. And then communication was key in regulating them emotions, making sure that we were communicating with one another and expectations.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, I understand that because when you're talking about different generations, right? Each generation is going to look at their emotions and how they handle their emotions. It's a little bit different than the other ones. So I think that we should just tell our listeners what today's
Yeah.
topic is, since we already just jumped on in.
Definitely. So we're going to be speaking on emotions and how you will regulate your emotions. How emotions definitely has an impact on just in your behavior, right? Because you have a thought, then you have an emotion from that thought, and then the behavior from that. So learning how to process emotions, definitely. So that's our topic today, and I'm excited about it because listen. I had a good time, but I also know that with things that goes on in my life, balancing and trying to make sure I'm managing so many different things that my emotions have been all over the place, right? And I
Mhm.
even know before I went on the mini vacation, I was like, okay, so it's gonna allow me to reset,
Yeah.
to relax, to figure some things out. And so it's so important that we don't dismiss or we don't suppress our
Mhm.
emotions, but we really process. So that's key, definitely. And I find myself, um, whether it is having a therapy session myself, or even when I'm not able to have a therapy session, then I'm journaling.
Okay.
I'm journaling my thoughts, my emotions, and how did I get to the emotion that I'm having, right? So
Mhm.
for me, that's key. Like, what is making me feel the way that I feel? Where did this emotion come from? What is it that, um, got me to the place of whether it's I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling sad? Because trust me, your girl emotions been yo-yoing.
Nope, I get that 100%. And I think you made a good point here. And a lot of people don't understand the interconnection between the emotions, the attitude, and the behavior, right? When you feel something, our attitudes change. So based off of just a feeling, based off of how we could be just feeling today, our emotions change, which changes the way that we move, right? The way that we might process things, the way that we might show up for each other as family and friends and things like that. So I think that that was a good part that you mentioned, is watching the emotions so we can make sure that we're watching our attitudes and that the behavior is reflecting who we truly are and no one else is really controlling our behavior, right? And that's that accountability piece, making sure that we are in control of our own behavior. And
Right.
so that is understanding our emotions and our attitude towards things. So I think that that was really a good part to kind of just make sure that everyone know that how everything is connected. We're like,
Hmm.
as human beings, we're wired connected.
Yes. And then too, also when you are aware of your emotions, it's like, okay, so I don't want this to spill over onto someone else, right? So when you said, okay, so if I'm feeling a certain way, if I'm having an emotion, and that is making me feel a certain way, then I don't want the behavior to
Yes.
spill out and be where I am, like mean or
Mhm.
um definitely not pleasant to be around. And it's okay to say, hey, I need some time by myself. I need to be able to step away. I need to take a nap.
Yes.
Or I'll catch up with you guys in an hour or so when I get myself together. That's so important.
Mhm.
But when you're not on vacation, of course, and you just to day life, right? I know for me, if I am in a mood, if my emotions are all over the place, I'm likely not in conversation with so many people because I want to make sure that it's not going to spill over into relationships or just in me interacting with others. I have to get my emotions in check. I need to make sure that they're getting regulated, like what is going on. So that's so important. So often I might hear a client say, well, I just don't want to deal with it. So they suppress. And I always say that it has nowhere to go. So when you think you're suppressing, I know you're using that as a defense mechanism. And so you're like, okay, so I don't want to deal with this. But over time, what happens is it's a buildup. So it comes out in the form of, it can come out in the form of anxiety, depression, anger, where you're explosive because you haven't dealt with things. I use the analogy of that tea kettle when it is where it starts to whistle, that steam, it wants to come out, evaporate. Like it's like, listen, that's just like the human body, right? So we don't want to suppress. You just want to find healthy ways to process.
Yeah, definitely. And so basically what I heard you say was some of the healthy ways you process is pausing before reacting. So taking a moment to kind of think about, how you want to react. And you mentioned therapy. And then, you also naming that emotion, right? Putting a name to it, what that emotion is, and that is a way to even help process it. Um, and I think that those are really good ways, healthy ways to start navigating emotions. Some of the things that I like to do is talk to people, right? Talking to somebody where I can just vent and just lay it all out on the table about how I feel about the situation, that non-judgment communication, right? Where it just kind of just feel open, not judge, just me and the girls just hanging out, having a good talk. And I mean, of course, sometimes that don't happen like it should, right? And so now I have, picked up the journal, like I tell everybody else, start journaling, and then also do the voice notes, right? Because life be life, and we know that everyone's working, got kids and things like that. But sending my friend a voice note about a stressful situation, something that just brought me down, it does. It's like relieving that because I'm still getting it off of my chest. I'm still expressing myself in more of a healthy way than just keeping it bottled up, because I will become that teapot. Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, I like that.
Definitely. Yeah, because it is where also sometimes people are like, okay, so I'm angry, right? And I always say anger is the top emotion, but what's underneath that? Like, so underline, so anger is up here, you likely are there, but then what is that really? So is it I'm hurt? Is it I'm disappointed? Is it I'm frustrated? What is it, so you could break it down, and being able to identify what got you to the anger. Because often when you're not actually able to identify what it really is, you go to instantly, I'm angry, but underlying, there's something there, right? Even when we think about I'm sad, often underlying, I'm hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just being able to start to identify, how did I get to this emotion? What was it that caused this emotion, right? And so for me, I even think about my own personal life. When you are managing so many different things, right? It really is where you could become frustrated with, I have this going on, that going on. And so it becomes so much so where I'm overwhelmed. So then me being overwhelmed has caused me to likely feel, whether it's sad or defeated, but I want to go back to, how did I get to the emotion that I'm at? What is it that I need to do? I need to likely compartmentalize everything that I'm working on, because everything can't be all grouped together. And it takes time to get to the knowing of how to use the skills and tools to be able to, one, identify the emotion you're in and how did you get to this emotion and what do you need to do to be able to process and get out of that emotional state. And so I think this topic is really important because so many people are managing various things in their lives, and the things that you don't have control over, because life gonna be life, and right. So you really don't have control over certain things, but you have control over your response and your reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that piece, and okay, so I feel the way that I feel because this may have occurred, but what am I going to do about that feeling? Because if I don't have control over it, then I have to look at how I want to respond to this. How do I want to react about this? Um, I can be okay with knowing that this isn't something I like, that I'm disappointed
Right.
um, in whatever it is. But I don't have control. So in me being disappointed, identify the emotion that I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I stay in this state or do I want to come out of this state? Because how is this state serving me?
Oh, that's a good question. You
Yeah.
know, and that's a really good question. How is it serving you, right? And so, when I think of like the heavy emotions that sit, I ask myself why? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I sad? I didn't just become sad. Like no one just becomes sad. You see little kids, they're happy. Why? Right? It's a thing that we have to process. Why? Life did take a hold of us. It's almost like one of the things we cannot deal with the future without facing the past because the past have shaped us. And so, with that being shaped from our past, we have to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Why am I putting the pressure on myself to be the perfect mom? Maybe because when I was younger, I see my mom try her best and I want to be as great as her. Or maybe I didn't see her try good enough and I just want to be great, right? But ask yourself, right? Get down to the underlying problem. Why do I feel this emotion that I'm feeling? And start tackling those emotions. We always are skipped to avoid our feelings, not talk about emotions and things like that. But we have to navigate them. We need to learn how to navigate through our emotions where we are having the ability to say, I feel this because of this, right? Those I statements are really important to use in a sense because no one can walk the same shoes as you. You
Mhm.
understand? Like we can't have the same perception on the same conversation because my background and your background is going to be different. So we are different. And I have to express, I feel this way because, and it may be something in my background versus the way you feel because of your background, right? And that's why it's so important to taking time to take a step back and navigate those feelings, identify those feelings so you can say why you feel the way you feel, not just because I said I feel this way. And that's where we get stuck. I feel it and we get stuck. I'm supposed to be angry. No, we're not supposed to be angry. Why? Why do you want to be? Why can't you find the root of it? What else is missing in your life that can bring you that peace? And to look at those different options versus just staying in an emotional state that we don't want to be in.
Right. Yeah, definitely that. And then too, I think being able, not that you instantly go to, oh, I have this emotion and so I need to get rid of it. Sometimes we need to sit in it because, and it's not sometimes, I always say it's okay to sit in an emotion for a period of time. Not that you would stay in that state, of course, but you sit in it because you're processing. You're like, okay, so this is where I'm at right now. Because once again, life is life, and right? And so it just would make sense where you may not always have the happy days or where you're always feeling joyous because something came up, but you want to be able to process it. And that's the piece, that's the healing piece of, okay, so I can be okay with not being okay. I can be okay with expressing and saying, this is how I am currently. This is the state of mood that I'm in right now. This is the emotion that I'm feeling right now.
Right.
And this is why that I'm feeling that.
Mm-hmm.
Having the self-awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
then, okay, so now what am I going to do with it, right? Because oftentimes people are like, they can't decipher um, if they're sad or they're depressed, right? And so you have to be in a state of sadness for a period of time based on our DSM-5 to be diagnosed with depression, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so many times people use it interchangeably because they're like, oh, well, I'm depressed. And a person can be if they have been in a state of sadness for a period of time associated with other things, so lack of motivation and different things of that sort, and, sleep patterns, things like that, because it's a combination of things when you receive a diagnosis. It's not just one. But I think that people being able to just say, hey, oh, I'm sad.
Right.
And I've been sad for a day or two,
Right.
and it's okay. Or I've been sad for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it doesn't mean you instantly go into I'm depressed,
Right.
but you are able to identify that you have this emotion and that why do you have this emotion? Hopefully, you're able to know. I always ask clients, are you able to identify your triggers?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because that's really key in being able to identify the trigger so we can work on what needs to be worked on as it relates to the root of the problem, right? And if
Right.
you're not able to identify it instantly, it doesn't mean that that's the end of the world, right? Because as you continue to do your work on your healing journey, you're going to become self-aware and you're going to be able to identify. You're going to know. Um, I think too, another factor in all of this is just really when you start to pay attention, because sometimes we could just keep going and doing things that we're like, I feel this way, or I had this emotion, but I just don't know. And then when you sit, because that's why I say sit in it, like really feel it. Where is it coming from? What was going on? Whether it was, like you said, a shaped experience, experiences shape you. So, was it an experience that you had? Was
Mm-hmm.
it a thought that came to you from the experience? Let's start to identify and just, like break down where this rooted cause came from so we can start to process the emotions that we're in. So that's so key. And I like when you said, hey, if I got girlfriends that I can talk to, to talk through, not that that replaces therapy, but you're not scheduled for a therapy session every day. So sometimes you really are like, hey, let me pick up the phone and call somebody and let me
Mhm.
tell them what I'm experiencing, how I'm feeling, what emotion is coming up for me. And likely we're going to talk through this. And then there's going to be different perspectives, hopefully, and how you could possibly view this differently. But then it may just be where, okay, no, this is what it is. This is where I'm at. And okay, so how can I support you?
Right, right. And that's the biggest thing. How can I support you where you are? And I think that you made some really great points, right? As being, trained and certified in brain spotting, right? Brain spotting, that's what it is. We focus on what comes up, and it allows the brain to naturally have the ability to process the trauma, the stress, or whatever that is keeping you stuck in that area. That's what that is. That's sitting in it, right? You're sitting in it and you're allowing your brain to heal itself, because the brain knows what to do. A lot of times as humans, we know what the right move may be. That doesn't mean we understand how to make the right move. It's time to make that move, or ready, right? That's the biggest thing, being ready, emotionally ready to make a move that we're not ready for. And so that's where it comes back to sitting in those feelings, right? You sit in it and you wonder, how long am I going to sit here feeling like this? And
Mhm.
am I going to do something about it? And so it's almost in the same thing as the brain spotting, in the sense of letting that brain naturally work, naturally process the what you're going through, and build, right? Help you feel more able to manage those emotions, because you have processed, this have happened, this is going on, this is how I feel, this is why I feel this way. Now I'm able to go with more informed, right? And a more informed behavior on when I move. My attitudes could be a little bit different, because I understand how I'm processing those emotions. I understand that I'm upset because of this. I understand that it's not that person, it's my past, and it's creeping up in my present, right? Like, those make big difference on our emotions when we can identify it's not a you thing, it may be a me thing, right?
Well, definitely, yeah. And I like the way that you said, okay, so because I know, of course, therapists are trained in different areas. That's not my area, but I like that you broke it down, and how that, the brain spotting technique is a benefit in being able to help clients. So definitely that. Um, and I always say too, when you think about just the emotions and being able to process those emotions, right? I find sometimes I'll have a client, they consider expressing themselves as a weakness. And so they're like, I don't want to cry. I don't want
Mhm.
to feel sad. I don't want to feel or express that I'm hurt. Um, I just want to move past this. And I don't, because I will be considered weak, whether that is from their culture, whether that is something that they were taught, and or they're modeling the behavior of suck it up,
Right.
especially men, right? Men don't cry,
Mhm.
boys don't cry, get it together. I know, as a kid, you likely heard, you better stop crying before I give you something to cry for.
Yeah, I do
I'm
some.
like, who came up with that? That's like this. Oh my gosh, that's so like awful.
Yeah.
So,
But I really think, like, you made some really good points, especially when it comes to expressing the emotions, and how men and boys are taught not to, and things like that. And when you do, oh, you're just a girl and you're just dramatic and you're just in your feelings and things like that. But there's healing from being able to express yourself, right? And a lot of people don't seem to understand the healing part, because if this situation that you're talking about is weak to express, is bothering you,
yeah.
then why not do something else? Why
Mhm.
not navigate through these emotions so it can stop bothering you? Why allow it to keep doing this when you feel that these emotions of being, weak or, being not enough or things like this is keep haunting you. And if it
Mhm.
keep haunting you, we need to regulate that. Like, why? And sometimes we got to face some of those hard conversations. Sometimes we have to put ourselves out there to be able to kind of heal, right? And
Yeah.
that is that initial step of saying that I can recognize and I can identify that this is what's wrong with me.
Yeah. I think giving the permission, because sometimes if you're in a session with someone and they're like, you can see them like, whether man or woman, right? They're like, listen, if a tear drop, they don't want, some do not want to cry. Um, Giving them the permission, letting them know that it's therapeutic, letting them know the benefits of expressing emotions, crying. It is such a relief.
Correct.
Listen, if I get a good cry in,
I know I did my job.
what? You know what? You like I want them to cry. I think I know it's a benefit, and I feel happy for them that they are able to release, that they feel comfortable in a space to be able to do that. I was talking about myself when I said if I could get a good cry in.
Oh, you're so funny. Yes.
Yes,
And that's true too,
I
right?
was like,
Yeah.
listen, because
Yeah.
when I say,
Hmm.
girl, I don't what over the last 2 weeks, I have been like emotional. And I was like, one day I didn't have any clients, and I'm like, this must be God. Because your girl had got dressed, did all of it, got myself together, whatever. And then I was like, let me take these clothes off, put my pajamas on, got in that bed,
Hmm.
and had me a time of just crying. Listen. And afterwards, I felt so good. And I
Yeah.
was just like, oh my gosh, I literally could not work. Literally, I'm like, look, God knew I was going to have this day. It was going to be needed. And so I didn't have any clients scheduled. I didn't have anything, but he knew I was going to need that day to be able to just process and express my emotions. And I needed it and it helped. And I was okay with it.
Right.
It was like, long overdue probably.
Hmm.
But I'm not opposed to crying at all. I know it's therapeutic, but I
Okay.
just think that it just, sometimes when you think you are processing things, and that can be, and but then you just don't realize to the extent of the heaviness of life and just things that's going on, of you just needing to like release. And so that's what happened, and it was awesome. um
Yeah.
and so I'm glad that I had that time because it was needed.
Yeah. I think in general, though, everyone need like that mental health day where they can just have that time to do that self reflection, even if it's, tears of sadness or just
Tears
enjoying
of joy.
tears of joy, right? Of what my life is on
Hmm.
what it was, right? I might cry about that. That might be really a lot for me to process that I was in a bad situation and now I'm in a better situation. I was in a I don't
Hmm.
know, a terrible house and now my house got a roof on it, right? Those,
Listen, that the gratitude tears,
you know,
baby.
yes. And as a therapist, it does feel great, right? Because we know that not only did we build that report good enough that they feel comfortable enough to open up, but we also know that they are fully opening up, right?
Mhm.
And they're pouring
Yeah,
their emotions out because you see it coming down their face, right?
yeah,
And that feels like a win. That feels like
yeah.
a win that I was able to create this space for you to
Yeah,
process your emotions, to cry and relieve yourself. And that's amazing. That's an amazing feeling as a therapist. And, I have heard clients walk out the office and say, wow, I didn't even know that even bothered me.
right.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's big because sometimes we don't know because society just keep pushing us to go further.
Yeah.
So
That's true. And that's a good, I'm glad you shared how, the benefit of it and how you see from clients that are processing their emotions and, having the cries through their sessions that it benefits them so much so. Yeah. And being able to witness that as a therapist is an awesome thing for sure. Because what we want is for the client to reach their goals for sure.
for
Yeah.
sure. And that's the biggest thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, regulating emotions is always going to be one of those topics that we could talk about it all day. We could talk about different
Right.
ways to do it, the importance of it,
Mhm.
the importance of being there for other people while they are working on learning how to process their emotions because
Right.
not everyone knows how. So, this was just a really good topic to kind of just dive into and kind of focus on because, again, 2026, we're coming from a more healed place. And this is a step by navigating our own emotions, allowing from this is a good place navigating our own emotions and not allowing others to control our emotions.
Right, definitely. And I am glad that you said too, the journaling piece, because if you don't have someone that you could just pick up the phone and
Mhm.
call and you may not want to share, and that's okay. Um, you know, being able to write and get it out, being able to use your phone and record your thoughts,
Oh yeah,
and just really having that time with yourself is so key. So I'm glad you brought up those key points as well.
mhm,
I think this was a good topic as well. So I'm hoping that people take away that it's okay to not be okay, but we also want you to know that you can express yourself, process your emotions, identify the root, and get to the place of just really processing where you're at
right,
on your healing journey. And as always, there is a therapist that is out there that is available for you. So don't hesitate, because
Ex-
this is really where we enjoy doing the work and assisting people with their healing journey.
correct, correct. Don't stay stuck. Don't stay stuck in somewhere you
Definitely not. Yeah.
want to be.
Uh-huh. And then also, did we say if you are new to our channel?
Nope, we didn't.
Okay. So if you are new to our channel, please subscribe, like, and share.
And don't forget to check out our social media at Empower, Ignite, and the number 2.
Take care.
Have a good one.